I've just been watching a netball game, and the person that I've picked up to talk about is Gabby. She was playing in the position goalkeeper. A skill strength that I identified from Gabby's performance would be her chest pass. The overall efficiency of the pass was very good because the majority of the time it went to the intended target, and the trajectory was very flat, which meant that it was harder for the other team to intercept. This meant that Gabby's team kept in possession of the ball, and they didn't have to waste energy trying to get the ball back if it was intercepted, which it wasn't because of the trajectory. In the preparation phase, she had her feet shoulder width apart, she had her arms abducted at the shoulder joint and flexed at the elbow joint, and she had a firm grip behind the ball with her hands in W shape, and she had good stable balance, and she was looking at her intended target. As she went to execute the pass, she transferred her weight from her back foot to her front foot, extended her arms at the elbow joint, and pushed through the ball, which helped this flat trajectory. In the recovery phase of the pass, she stepped forward to regain her balance. She then got back up onto her toes to move into a different position to help aid her team get the ball down the court. Another skill strength that I picked out would be Gabby's lean. Because she was playing the position goalkeeper, her lean was very good because it would often put the shooter off, or mean that the shooter had to step back, which meant that the distance between the shooter and the post was greater, and this would usually mean it would be harder for them to put their shots up. And this meant that it was inefficient for her team because it decreased the likelihood of them scoring, and it also put pressure on the shooter. In the preparation phase of her lean, she had her feet positioned a metre away from the ball, and she was stable and balanced, ready to go up. She also was facing the shooter, which meant that she'd probably be able to get the best distance on her lean. As she executed her lean, she went onto her tiptoes, and she leant forward, holding the position with her in her core and her trunk, and she managed to hold the position for 3 seconds, and often this meant that the shooter stepped back, or that it put the shooter off, and it decreased the likelihood of them scoring. So I think it was an efficient skill. Some tactical strengths of Gabby's would be, I would say, calling. As her team was moving the ball down the court, she would call left or right to help indicate to her team where they were going. Not only does this help her team know and her players know the direction that she thinks the ball would be travelling down, it also can sometimes put pressure on the other team, as there's also a lot of noise and other cues for them to concentrate on, and sometimes it can be harder for them to block these out, and this can affect their performance. Another tactical strength of Gabby's would be her man-to-man marking. She was often very tight on her player, which meant that they had less space in the circle, and this was effective, I think, because she was then able to kind of, in a way, control where her player went, as she held her space very well. Fitness strengths of Gabby's that I would say that she had very good trunk flexibility, because she was able to hold her lean for the 3 seconds, as I said, which meant that she wasn't leaning in and giving away obstruction or stepping in, and she was able to maintain this throughout the duration of the game, showing good muscular endurance in her trunk flexibility in particular. I would also say that balance and coordination would be a fitness strength of Gabby's, because she was able to go up onto her toes and hold the position, showing good balance, and she was also able to coordinate her arm to lean forward, as well as other parts of her body when she was doing her lean, especially, which shows good coordination, and they all helped her performance, in my opinion. Weaknesses of Gabby's, some skill weaknesses I would say would be at times her foot pattern around her player. This often meant that she wasn't always on her toes ready to move, so although she was close to her player when she was doing her man-to-man marking, at times her player could do quick dodges and get away, and this meant that when they did things like splits, they were able to get closer to the post. Another main weakness of Gabby's, I think this would probably be her main weakness, would be her shoulder pass. This is because in the preparation phase, I don't think that she had her arm fully extended back behind her head, which meant that the trajectory of the pass was weaker than it should be, because she couldn't generate enough power when she executed it. I think this affected the overall efficiency, because the trajectory was loopier than it should have been. I mean, it travelled through the air. It took longer to travel through the air, which meant it was a lot easier for opponents to intercept, especially if they were sometimes taller or could jump higher than other people on her team, and this did happen on a couple of occasions. in the execution phase, she did transfer her weight similarly to how the perfect model would do, and then as she recovered, she did regain her balance. But I think because the trajectory of the pass due to the preparation phase was quite weak, this was not necessarily always the best pass that she executed in her performance. Tactical weaknesses I picked up of Gabby would be being dragged out too much by the player. Often the player her goal shooter, would run forward and then pull back into the circle, and as Gabby had gone forward, they were able to put in a high ball over her head and get closer to the post. And this did happen on a couple of occasions. So I would say that tactics-wise, she could have maybe realised what they were doing and holding the space and held her player, so it would be more difficult for them to get the ball into the circle. Another tactical weakness I'd say of Gabby would be blocking out of the circle. She did try and do this on one occasion, however her player was able to get in because she didn't kind of stay with it the whole time and didn't really continue with it and let them kind of in. If you just held her space, they obviously can't run into her because they'd be contacting her and then she would get possession of the ball. So I think that this is something that maybe she could also work on to improve her performance and tactic-wise keep a player out of the circle, which would make it a lot harder for them to score, and if they did put shots up, get rebounds. Fitness strengths of Gabby's, I would say, will perhaps be muscular endurance, because as the duration of the practices that we were doing did go on, it did appear that she was tiring a bit, and at times certain things that she did looked a bit, they had a lot less effort put into them, which meant that there wasn't always the same amount of power that there was initially. I think this is something that could be developed to make sure that her performance stayed at its best throughout. Also, cardiovascular fitness, she did seem to be getting slightly more tired towards the end, which is obviously natural, but I think if this was maybe worked on a little bit more, it would also help her performance, and she would be able to maybe keep up with the shooter and maintain that throughout the duration of the game. The main weakness that I've picked up on Gabby's performance, it would be her shoulder pass, and that's the skill strength that I'm going to put into an action plan. Firstly, I would make the action plan 6 weeks long, because it is long enough to see improvement, but it's not too long where the performer would get bored or disinterested. I would do a test at the beginning of the action plan where I'd put Gabby into a game situation, probably maybe half a game or depending maybe a full game, and count the amount of successful chest passes that she made to help her team. I would then repeat this again at the end so that we can measure and compare and to see if the action plan has actually made a difference. Firstly, the first practice I would do or get Gabby to do to work on her shoulder pass would be standing against the wall a couple metres away and simply just working on putting her arm all the way back, using both hands and pushing the ball against the wall. The ball would then obviously come back off the wall, and this would be a repeated thing to make sure that she had the correct technique in her arm. This would also help her muscular endurance, that I also picked up as a weakness, because it's repetitive and it's using the same muscle groups over and over again. She can transfer this to both sides of her body, so then she can also develop her shoulder pass on her left hand, even though it was not necessarily her dominant hand in the game. I would then progress this to still being stationary, where you can work on the perfect model's technique, but with a partner over maybe say the width of the netball court, and just doing stationary passes, still working on technique and working on getting the trajectory as flat as possible. It also is good because you can use your opponent as your intended target, and if they moved along the line, it can also help with accuracy. I would then progress this to doing chest passes in a moving drill. So an example would be maybe pass and follow. This could then be progressed on to running onto the ball and receiving the chest pass and then having to do a chest pass back. The furthest distance that you would have to throw a chest pass in a game would be from the start of one third to the end of the next third. So the next progression that I would do would be having her to feed it in the ball from the back line, for example, where she is a goalkeeper, and getting the ball down to centre court, or perhaps if she was playing goal defence, from the centre third, feeding balls into shooters using good accurate shoulder passes, where I'd put opponents in trying to intercept them and mark players, so it would be realistic to a game situation. I then progress this to maybe a 3-on-3 practice, where the players would be encouraged to use mainly shoulder passes, but obviously it would not be ideal over all distances. I think this would help Gabby to use shoulder passes correctly, and this would develop the technique that she'd previously learned when doing it stationary. I would then progress this to maybe a 5-on-5 practice, and eventually get them to be marked, and then put it back into my test of a game situation to see if there'd been any progression, which hopefully there should have been. The pathway to netball in this country is that you can start off playing at primary school level. That's when I started playing in year 6, and it would usually be quite a basic club where you learn more about fundamental moving skills like running, catching, passing, etc. And then sometimes if the school organises it, you can have games where the child would be put into like a more competitive situation, and this could maybe help with their skills. This is then developed when you come to secondary school, because netball is on the national curriculum, and you do it in PE lessons in year 7, 8 and 9. And you learn a lot more about the rules of the game and all the different skills that come with it. If you're interested in netball, it's possible to join clubs. There are many local clubs in our area. I personally play for Essex Open, but there are clubs at all different age groups. You have under 14s, under 12s, so you can start from quite a young age. If at school you continue to play, you can play for school teams, where you'd be in school leagues and play against other schools in the borough, which is also very good because you get kind of an idea about the rules of the game, and it's got a lot more of a competitive streak than just playing in PE lessons, and you're also representing your school. If your PE teacher usually thinks you're good enough, there are district trials which you can go for. So you go and you'll trial against all the people that have been selected from other schools, and if selected, you'll be put into a district squad, and then this can progress to regional squads where you would train with your team. Usually the squads are of about 20 people, and they're based on age groups or school years. I think this is a really good experience for netball, and this is one of the ways that you can progress very well, where you have like top level coaching. This can then progress if you're lucky enough to England squads, and you have like under 16 England squads, or maybe as you get older, under 18, and then the actual England squad. In this country, playing for England netball team is the highest that you can go. There are also, if you go down the club route, other netball clubs such as Mavericks, who do play, and they sometimes have their games televised, and this is also at very high level. I play for a club as well, and I used to play for the regional team in my club. So you play against everybody in your area, and you have to travel all over your region. And then if you progress, it can become national, and you play national level, which is also very high. Health and fitness benefits of netball. There's social, mental and physical benefits. Physical benefits would be, as with any other exercise, as it can be at quite a high intensity, with often like you're required to sprint or mark a player, weight loss, and also muscle tone, like your muscles will get more definition over time. It would also help to improve your general fitness and prevent things such as heart attack, heart disease with stuff, because any form of exercise just help. You're obviously working your cardiovascular system as you play, and it can also prevent things such as type 2 diabetes, coronary heart disease. Also with playing, you're strengthening your bones, which could also in the future prevent things such as osteoporosis and osteoarthritis, as it's a weight-bearing activity. Running is a weight-bearing activity, which can also help. There are also mental benefits. With any sport, it can relieve stress, and as you improve, this can develop confidence as well. Social benefits would be the same with any other team sport. You're playing with people, so you can meet new people and socialise at training sessions and with games and things like this. And fitness benefits of netball would obviously be that general fitness improves. Cardiovascular fitness would improve, as I said before, through practices and drills and training, stuff like muscular endurance, flexibility, and depending on your position, different skill components of fitness would also improve over time. So, yeah.